Good day, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation, number 160. Hopefully that will work. Let's see if it does. Okay. As I explained last week, until I can get a new computer, and I don't know when that's going to be, we're not going to be playing music on the channel because it's just not worth it. Doesn't play well enough. I will say go and check out Chris Gard's channel on YouTube, and also go and check out Patriotic Archives channel on YouTube if you like good traditional music, etc. One of our guests has not arrived yet. How are you going this up today, Mitch?
Same old, same old.
Did you have a first subject you wanted to bring up?
I mean, in terms of like domestic UK stuff, I suppose I've got two options. Is Lee Anderson getting suspended because he said Sadiq Khan had given London over to Islamists, or there's a second issue of Homeland Party supporting the idea of an immigration referendum. I don't know which one to pick out of those two.
You can talk about either or both of those. Make your choice.
I might as well talk about both of them. So Lee Anderson is an MP. From what it seems to me, he's a very, very conservative MP. Like probably one of the few good ones there are. And he got.
I've seen something about this on Twitter X, where he's been talked to by the chief whip and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, carry on, man.
Yeah, that's all I heard was. So he pretty much said something to the lines of, "Oh, London has been given over to these Islamists because apparently during that Palestine debate they had, which was very tumultuous, from what I've heard, where Lindsay Hoyle is having a telling herself apparently of a white fundamentalists, meanwhile is actually not the far right who are causing this ruckus. But yeah, and then you have Lee Anderson, who, as I said, like decent Tory MP, like one of the few Tory MPs I'd stomach voting for. He said words to the effect of Sadiq Khan has given over the city to these Islamist elements or something.
Which he has.
Yeah, and he's happy with taking from him for it. Right. So sorry, what I'm just looking at. Yeah, and you got all these former Tory MPs like I forget her name now. This massive like Muslim Tory MP who is essentially like a group advocate on behalf of Muslims, calling his comments Islamophobic and pouring on the fire of anti-Muslim hatred, and of course all the usual mushrooms on Twitter. They're going, oh well, this is literally Nazi Germany all over again. Blah blah blah. Yeah, but they're saying when Boris Johnson did the whole letterbox comment all those years ago, so nothing new.
I just find it funny, I mean, you get all these morons talking about, oh, this is literally Nazi Germany because it's Islamophobic, and then of course on the other hand, the people who are actually hugely anti-Semitic are the Islamic people. So it's kind of ironic in a way, shall we say? And me, I'd get rid of all of them. I be it the small hats or the Islamists. I'd have them all gone if it was down to me. But that's just me.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the Lee Anderson issue. I mean, there's not really much more news other than that. Like, he's had a whip taken over him. I suppose the main thing is, I actually call up the fact that they're actually taking whip from him because it just shows the Tories are complete pansies. Like, they can't even defend the capital city from being taken over by all these Muslim fanatics who would otherwise just don't deserve to belong here. It's as stupid as, let's say, oh no, imagine Lord Kitchener going, oh well, we must have hundreds of thousands of Sudanese Muslims in the
Yeah.
midst of the Mardis War coming over to London at the height of the war.
Utterly
It's level
ridiculous.
hideous.
Yeah, utterly ridiculous. I mean, I like I said, I don't want to fall into the trap of going on about the anti-Semitism bit, because I don't think that's an issue. The issue to me is that they shouldn't be in Britain. You know, they just shouldn't be in Britain. No one invited them here. Well, the British government did, I suppose, but that was not because the British people wanted them. They never have. Every survey that's ever been done has said British people are against mass verbal immigration. And the British government, whether it be Labour or Conservatives, they're both equally bad, have just continued inviting these third world people in and turning London, for example, into a third world city. So, fact of the matter. How are you going, AI?
Hello. I'm good. How are you, Iron Duke? How are you feeling?
All right, mate. Took my 18 tablets not long before the stream. Yeah, I've got to go to the docs this week. Hopefully get some slightly stronger pain medicine, because the only pain medicine I'm on at the moment is paracetamol, would you believe?
Oh wow,
I don't think he's quite cutting it at the moment, but yeah.
No.
Especially when I cough or something.
You're not like straining yourself with exercise or doing anything to get your blood pressure?
Oh no, mate! No! I get my shopping gets delivered. I do that on the computer. Yeah, but I do have to go to the docs next week. So.
That's good.
But yeah, but no, I'm not doing anything. I can't do anything very physical at the moment, which is a bit boring. But there's not much I can do about it.
No.
So yeah, did you have a first subject you wanted to bring up this evening, AI?
The only thing I can really think of.
You're muted, AI. You're yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
How you going, mate? Sorry.
Yeah, my mic's playing up a bit at the moment. So yeah, I think the first subject is what's been going on, I guess, in London recently, the recent topics, because there does seem to be like a more and I'm a bit suspicious of it in some ways, but more of a hostility to the sort of Islamists in and around London. People that are people on our side who've warned about for years, decades and decades. But the problem that I see is it's coming from the position of not so much we should deport them, we should arrest them en masse or anything like that, but it's from the position of we need to tackle extremism. But if you look at, like, I recently went to a major city, and they had a Palestinian protest there, and every single one, I mean, I just give you the compilation of these protesters, good majority of them, so I would say maybe 3/4 were of Muslim, Middle Eastern, Asian descent, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then the quarter are basically, and this particular one were like communist boomers.
Yeah. So you're talking about your middle class, know nothing cat ladies and this kind of people.
Yeah. Like they'll wear like the never kissed a Tory, or Tory fascism, or they'll like the people you see on social media that have like hashtag resist Tory fascism, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Those sorts of people, and there does seem to be like a genuine shift in dialogue from sort of the elements in the Tory party, which is like proper red meat stuff of sort of flirting with anti-Islamism. Lee Anderson, we saw as like an MP. He did that today, or not today,
Mitch
yesterday, and
was
he's been.
just to let you know, Mitch was just talking about that one AI. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So as you all know, what happened there, and I don't know, because what's quite interesting is today on social media I've seen people like Morgoth and Millennial Woes and Tom Rousel, aka Survive the Jive, and many people on our side who've been hitting back against and even like Carl Benjamin, people like that, hitting back against these because there's Enoch Powell has come up again as he regularly does at the moment on Twitter, and it was that interview on the Dick Cavett show back in, was it 71 or something, 71, 72.
Mm-hmm.
And there's of course there's been and there was one particular account that I saw that was heavily counter signaling the issue at hand, which was dealing with the that this is a question of mass immigration of a foreign culture and race in our country, and his position, this chap who is a self-proclaimed Zionist, okay, self-proclaimed Zionist, is that, well, we're all the same. There is no, we're all descendants of Africa. Like
Mm-hmm.
the whole that whole argument, and of course he's he sort of
Yeah,
gets, he
the
sort of
out of
snuff.
Africa thing has been fairly thoroughly debunked these days, I think.
Well, yes,
You know,
and he
that all humans came out of Africa, all modern.
Africa, but then he uses the example. Oh yeah, we've had Romans, we've had Greeks, we've had blah, blah. So we're all
I think that's
descended.
been.
We're all descendants of people all across the world and everything else. And of course, Tom Rauser went in there to sort of beat that sort of misconception out of him. But one thing it does show is that that's not the only like pro-Zionist account I've seen attacking English people on the right who are, going against immigration. And this is where it comes down to the heart of it. You have people like that who are happy having third worldists in our cities and in our towns, committing all types of terror and horrors, and yet at the same time being the biggest Israel supporters on the planet. And this is sort of the crux.
Although I think I was just going to say, although I think it's also worth mentioning that some of the some Jewish people, shall we say, are have begun to wake up and smell the roses a bit, and that importing millions of third world Islamic people into Western nations is actually not entirely a good thing from the point of view of Jewish people. So, even some of those guys have woken up a little bit.
I mean, maybe the sort of, I think some of the, I'm not talking about Orthodox or in that sort of go, because I think I think that's true. I think a lot of them have woken up to that fact. But that being said, this is the general mood of the country is I think there does seem to be like a concerted effort of red meat, sort of go after the Islamist stuff. They're the ones that are causing the problem. But I would say you have to remember these people have been brought here, like they've been brought to America and other European countries, as a way of instilling division and fear deliberately. You know, that they are the
Oh,
people.
for sure. Yeah.
Like
I do think that's part of the motivation. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like the African Americans in
Yeah.
the US, they are used as a client group to enact rioting at the the establishment's behest. If a president steps out of line, you know, if someone steps out of line.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you at all there. I think that
So I
part
mean,
of the
my thing
motivation
is,
for importing all these people is exactly that. It is to divide and break up Western societies. Absolutely, 100%.
yeah. So I mean, on that point, I just sort of summarize it. My point would be just to everybody, be careful with you know, because you go into sort of like the Tommy Robinson sort of red meat
Yeah, I mean, look,
Muslim
I
sort of
think
thing.
most of us on the right are fairly. I think we're fairly familiar now. Anyway, most of us on the right are fairly familiar with the counter-jihad narrative and its
Counter jihad.
limitations.
Yeah. It's just
I think
it's a
we're
very
mostly
it's
fairly aware of that now.
it's a very easy trap to fall into for a lot of people. I mean, I have no doubt that the Lotus Eaters and people like that will fall into it, but
I mean, like as I was saying to Mitch before you joined us, AI, as I was saying to Mitch before you joined us, my view is that I agree with the counter-jihad argument. These people shouldn't be in our countries. But at the same time, there's quite a lot of these small hat types who also shouldn't be there. So, you know, I think you've got to balance them out, basically.
Yeah, and the problem is we've seen, what's quite interesting is
I think we've also got to be careful that the Islamists are not our friends on the right, you know?
no, because then you have like this,
you know, yeah. Sorry.
yeah. Sorry. I think there's a bit of delay on my bit here. There's like a sound delay or something. But I think what's been interesting today is that you've got arguments that have devolved on the right, on between like the fake right and the genuine sort of distant right, like British, putting British people first types, where a lot of those counter jihad figures and accounts have actually been exposed, and they've sort of been forced into a position where they have to say, oh yeah, I'm okay with all these Hamas supporters, people of ethnic background who support Hamas, to be here. And so it's just been a really fascinating day to watch that play out on social media, because it's it just shows the absolute level of just sort of scummy nature of all these people, and I mean also the Tory party getting rid of Lee Anderson for stating well, I mean, he said absolutely there's nothing incorrect. The Muslim they use like mass populism tactics, like mob tactics, in places like Hyde Park. They use it on the community level as well, in dealing with other groups in London. And to say, Sadiq Khan, of course, he has an in-group preference towards his own group, which he has demonstrated his time in his legal career before Parliament. So it's nothing he said was incorrect, but of course the Tories kicked him out because they're a bunch of communist cowards, and you had other anti-white Tory politicians like that bold smackhead type, what's he called, Sajid Javid, building up and siding with the Islamic extremists and the anti-white lobby in this country, which is again no surprise there.
It's pretty difficult, actually, if you look at the Conservative cabinet, to find a white Anglo-Celtic man in it, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, and that's why they're going to lose.
Very difficult to find a white Anglo-Celtic, actually British man in the Conservative cabinet.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. And if you think about most constituencies, like the core Tory voting constituencies in the country, even today, those constituencies are overwhelmingly white British. And the thing there is, and the population at large, especially the conservative voting types, the ones that vote conservative, as been demonstrated in by-elections, won't vote. They won't vote for an Indian, a West African, a Pakistani or Bangladeshi. They won't vote for those sorts of people that run the Tory party. They won't vote for foreigners. And the Tory party and Tory party HQ, CCHQ, because they're savvy, they're not delusional, they're not idiots. They know this. They probably know this, and this is why there's been a lot of talk recently, and like today and yesterday, about removing Sunak before the election. I think it could happen. I personally think they'll be aiming to put Robert Jenrick in.
Possibly. Look, I mean, Sunak is a globalist Indian banker and a Hindu. I mean, his connection to the UK is very light, shall we say?
So
I certainly would never vote for it.
Yeah, someone mentioned in chat, Mark Collette asking, should nationalists work with Muslims on the latest with controversial? Well, no, because the reason they shouldn't is because when number one, what are you working on? Is he referring to like a revolutionary sort of movement to overthrow the current regime? And if doing that, it is possible, like in all revolutions, whether it be the French or the Bolshevik or the Iranian, the faction that's in the revolution movement that is the weakest or the disorganized will get stabbed in the back. So no, we shouldn't. We shouldn't, because also any successful nationalist will know.
Just to be clear, this channel, of course, doesn't support anything along the lines of revolution, etc. We are entirely peaceful and law-abiding. Sorry, carry on. Ed.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was a hype. It was just a hypothetical question to what Colette was stating in this video. I mean, of course, I'm not advocating a revolution in any way, but my point was, is he saying like they should team up to fight leftism? Because I mean, to be absolutely blunt, if you look at the practice of many Muslims in this country, especially they are spiritually left wing. They are anti-imperialists. They're openly anti-imperialists. They promote egalitarianism among the masses. It's very a mass movement, because that's the sort of nature of Islam. It's not that elitist. It's very sort of a mass movement, all encompassing. And I mean, I would say, I don't know what you guys think, but if Bowden was alive today and he saw that statement, I think he would take the position of, well, no, because they're a different race, and also because the values that Islam promotes is it is largely that of victimhood. There's
certainly not the values that Islam promotes are certainly not Anglo-Celtic British values. That's for sure.
No,
look, I'm very against punching. Hang on a minute, I'm very much against punching riot, but I would just say, if Colette is asking if nationalists should cooperate with Muslims, how is that different than the counter-jihad people cooperating with small hat interests, shall we say? I'm just, to me, they're part of the same sort of problem, aren't they? What do you think, Mitch? You seem to have lost AI for a minute. Hopefully you'll be back soon. Mitch, what's your view on that?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of.
To me, it seems to be two sides of the same coin, you know. You're cooperating with people who are not necessarily your friends, if you see what I mean.
Whereas as I always said, I mean, the thing is, you take a look at the Iranian revolution, where the Islamists won, because while they were the smallest faction, they were most fanatical. You can totally imagine that happening to us if we were to ally with them. How do we know one backstab or at a later point? Plus, also,
Yep.
plus also, the problem is we've got much different experience as Muslims compared to America. So it's mainly the Americans who push this idea of allying with the Muslims because they don't have the experience that we do.
Yeah, no, like I said, neither the Muslims or the small hats are our friends. I mean, I've said this many times on this channel, and obviously you, Mitch, and AI may have different views on this, but my own view is when I look at the situation in Gaza, for example, Hamas and the Palestinians are not our friends, but neither is Israel. You know, I'm entirely neutral about that thing, and I just don't want Britain or Australia or other Western nations to get involved in it. It's like, let them sort their own damn problems out. And the fact that we have these big demonstrations in Western nations like Britain, for example, is a direct result of mass third-world immigration. We brought these bloody people over here, and they brought their bloody problems with them. I mean,
that's the thing, isn't it?
I mean, Mitch, what do you think? If these people weren't in London and Birmingham and Manchester, etc., you wouldn't be getting these problems.
I'm sorry, I'm back now. Just to interrupt, I think there's something. I don't know if it's your mic or Mitch. Yeah, I don't know if it's your mic or Mitch's mic, but there's like static coming through, like.
Yeah, I think it's Duke's mic.
Yeah.
It's my mic, is it? Okay, I know I had this problem last week. Don't know what caused it. I did stop it last week. Don't know what's doing it this week. We will see. Who knows?
But I think that's my overarching point is like at the end of that, it's mainly like the likes of the right stuff.biz types who show this idea of white Muslim alliance against the certain minority that shall not be named. So I just don't get, because I mean you don't see Germans or Swedes or Brits or Irish shilling this idea. It's only these sort of American Natsok types who try and shill this idea because they look at Mustache Man working with the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem and they think they can replicate it today, which I just have my doubts.
Well, yeah, I mean the obvious one is
and I mean Germany was doing that, of course, at a time when they had no Muslim population. You know, Germany
I mean the only
European
Muslim population, the only European Muslim population that I guess you could argue would be the Bosnians.
Yeah, in the Balkans, yeah, absolutely.
In the Balkans, yeah, and but no, not beyond the Balkans. Maybe parts of not even really Russia. They're too far removed. But yeah.
He's talking about my boomer tech. You know, he's saying the TDS guys were going on about the Muslims. But if you're going to do that, one of the things, of course, you have to do is you have to discount all of the so-called grooming gang stuff. You know, are you going to, if you're on the right in Britain and you're a nationalist, are you going to chuck all those young English schoolgirls under the bus in order to garner this Muslim support? How do you work that?
Any sort of any sort of revival amongst the British people of a spirit. I won't say of a spirit. If your movement is then just working and negotiating with a foreign group, then you've already lost. You're not really doing anything, because you're having to read, like the stream I did yesterday with North Huger on Ragnarok.
Yes,
and
I
Norse
watched
mythology.
That's worth checking out. Yeah.
I mean, that's something radical, because what we're doing is
That's worth checking out for people in the chat.
Yeah, thank you. Now something like that, where you're going into the culture, your own culture, you're going in there and looking at it, rediscovering it, trying to understand it, and also at the same time, looking beyond the modernity and all that sort of stuff. That is something which, I mean, if you're going to invest any time in that sort of movement, that is far more effective than whatever the suggestion is. And also I would say, on the American front, I find that a lot of and this is why I really can't stand American politics, because number one, it's just so phony. Is that and this is the trouble. This is why America, I don't know if it can continue in its current form, is everything, especially since the 90s, in the 80s maybe not so much, but in the 90s, everything has to be divided. Not just between red and blue, but men versus women, blacks versus whites, gays versus straights, and you can't have a society functioning like that. And you have, like, now, sort of, I think the reason why the Christian types in America, what you were saying, siding with the Muslims, is because in the American mind, it's actually like militant satanic atheists versus Christians. So
look, this is not an American channel. We have American members, and there are Americans on the Discord, as you chaps know. But it's not an American channel, and we don't have an American on the air at the moment. So I'm a bit reluctant to go too deeply into what's going on in the US. But I think we can agree that, there is this DEA stuff in America, the diversity, inclusion, and blah, which basically divides everybody against everybody. And this is what the progressives are, as they call themselves, are deliberately doing. And a lot of that's been imported into Britain. It's been imported into Australia and other Anglosphere nations and European nations. We can say that. Yes, it's absolutely true. I just think we've got to keep fairly clear friend-enemy distinctions on the right. And as I say, my own view, and you guys might differ, but my own view is that that neither the Muslim immigrants or the particularly the liberal Jewish types who are enormously pro massive world immigration, neither of those groups are our friends. They're just not.
No.
I mean, that's my view, and we should largely steer clear of both groups. But Mitch, you haven't said much. What do you think, mate?
Well, I mean, I've already said what I think about it. I just find a lot of bollocks, the idea of us allying with Muslims. So what? I don't think there's much to be said off my end.
Yeah,
I just don't.
Yeah, someone in the chat is explaining what he was talking about, but I just don't think it's right. Carl G is saying he was making the case for nationalists to work with Muslims against Zionism and the LGBTQ movement attempt to wrest the Muslim vote away from Labour to break the two-party system. Again, I see what he was talking about. I just don't think it's going to work. And I think it's a policy which is fraught with potential problems. In particular, as I say, how do you deal with the issue? The ongoing issue, by the way, because it's not stopped, it's not gone away, it's mostly been covered up, of grooming gangs, particularly in cities and towns all over England and Wales.
Well, I mean,
how
in
are
the
you going to
case of
deal
a
with
Muslim
that
vote,
issue and cooperate with Muslims?
in the
Sorry,
case
mate,
of a
carry
Muslim
on.
vote, I mean, the thing is, I'm pretty sure there's a new Muslim party that's just formed up recently. I can't remember the name of it, but let's say that begins. I mean, you also got George Galloway's party, which in Rochdale they're making a huge ruckus about Gaza, trying to take away the Muslim vote.
Well, let's
So
be
there
honest.
are third parties.
That is a. I mean, that is a Muslim party anyway. If George Galloway is involved, it's pretty much a Muslim party. So yeah, I mean, the Workers' Party of Great Britain, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and of course you had the Respect Party, which
I mean, look. First of all, I don't think you're going to get them away from the Labour Party. Yeah, I don't think you can get these Muslim voters away from the Labour Party anyway. But even if you could, how do you do that while still doing anything practical about the grooming gang stuff, for example?
Well, it's not. Well, you shouldn't be. I mean, the idea of the nationalists are going to be the ones to split away the Muslim vote. Not that, but it'd be more accurate if you were to just say, "Oh, someone like George Galloway, just get him to try and." Whatever. But like the idea that we can get the Muslims to stop voting Labour, well, we're not going to be the ones to convince them. It'll be of their own volition when they vote for Sharia party or I don't know some sort of pro-Palestine party. Because I mean, because I've seen with Labour, it's their leadership aren't on board with the Muslims as insofar as Israel versus Palestine goes. So you can imagine George Galloway might make some headroads in turning the Muslims against Labour. I actually support him endeavour, to be honest, just to screw over Labour. If nothing else.
For sure. I mean, look, Labour Party are not our friends at all. You know, as I've said many times, that the so-called Conservative Party and the Labour Party are in effect a uni-party, really, and no one on the right should be voting for either of them, basically. So yeah. Mitch, when we first started, before AI joined us, you had a second subject you were talking about, which we never got around to discussing. Do you remember what that was now?
It was about the Homeland Party. They come up with the idea of an immigration referendum. Which
that I think we should discuss. Sounds like a very good idea to me.
Yeah, I don't support it because, like with Brexit, the establishment just disarmed all the sentiment behind it and warped it into something it wasn't. So instead of talking about mass immigration and racial identity and whatnot, instead we're talking about taxes and regulations and the common market rather than the actual crux of Brexit. So
it'd be much more difficult to do that if it was a referendum on mass border immigration, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but the Tories would.
I mean, if you just say, "Look, do you support mass immigration?"
Yeah, but they're not going to word the question like that, are they? Like, you're literally giving over our most potent playing card over to an establishment who will try all amounts of semantic whataboutery and whatnot to screw us over. So
they'll find it hard, mate. I really do, because it's really going to come down to a yes or no answer to it. And I think,
and you know what they're going to do, but yeah, they'll just complicate the issue. They'll just do all manner of tricks to screw us over. So
look, for sure. Of course, they will try and do as many tricks as they possibly can. I understand that, but at the end of the day, it's still going to come down to a yes or no issue. And I think the vast majority of real Anglo-Celtic Brits are going to vote no.
Yeah, but they'll just word it to do you want to deport everyone who's non-white? They'll probably just put in someone as clear-cut as that, just to... Because that's the thing, at the end of the day, I mean, you can talk about...
I don't think they will. I think they find that too dangerous, Mitch, because I think they might not like the answer to that.
No, I think, like, if I were to gamble...
I don't think they'll do anything, because they might get an answer they don't like at all.
No, I don't think people will vote for yes in that scenario, because I mean, too many people know that nice black guy who's their neighbour, or that nice non-white fella who they're friends with
I'm
at the
not
school
sure
or
about
whatever.
that, mate. I don't know about
Yeah,
that.
Well, okay. So the
I'm
problem
not
with
so sure about
the problem with referendum is, number one, it will be the state that would arrange the whole thing anyway. So they would determine the wording, like they had in the EU
that.
referendum.
Mhm.
They would determine the time, the date, who's eligible to vote, all these sorts of things. And what would happen is the topics, and then you have like the official campaigns, which will be established, both establishment run. Any distance like us or people, or even the Homeland Party, let's just say they were victorious, and I don't see that happening. But anyway, let's just say they are victorious in what they need to do. They'll just it will be contained by the Tory Party machine or UK or whatever Farage is doing, sort of centre, the centre right wing populist sort of a sphere, and it will be contained, watered down, and then it will just become meaningless. Like Brexit, because Brexit became. We know Brexit was about, for everyone. For everyone, it was about mass immigration. It was the numbers and the
For
changing
sure.
demographics of towns and cities across the country, and not just from non-European. It was European, but also non-European as well. And suddenly, overnight, and I remember at the time, it just became like a question of economics, and then you had like Boris Johnson and the other tits coming out and saying, "Oh no, we're in favour of immigration and everything. We welcome immigrants." And
Yeah.
but this and then it became like economic. It just became like just a GDP debate, and the problem is, and this is, the reform, the Homeland Party. I mean, in my mind, it's just another party. I don't know what they can achieve. I am interested though that they've managed to get on the registered as a party, which is interesting because I'm surprised it hasn't been blocked, or there's been attempts to block it for being, quote unquote, too right wing or whatever. But then at the same time, the establishment could use the not the Reform Party, the Homeland Party, as like their next gen sort of BNP Patsy, Patsy fascist party. They can demonize and use, attack and use as like the enemy within, the enemy of liberal democracy. So we will see, but
I entirely see what you're saying, AI, but I entirely see what you're saying. But like, if there was some chance of the British public getting a referendum on mass immigration, I would absolutely support it, rather than not having one.
I think
I don't see how not having one helps us. I really don't.
I mean, number one, I just think it's pie in the sky that there won't be a referendum on mass immigration, and even if there was, let's just say there was.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. But if there was, I'd support it for sure.
Well, yeah, sure, but at the same time, we I mean, the EU referendum was a referendum on mass immigration. That's sort of my point. That was the referendum on mass immigration, and we just got more of it, and more of it from Asia and Africa.
I know that, mate, and we all know that Brexit was totally perverted. Yes.
Yeah, and so that
I totally agree with you. I'm not arguing with what you're saying there
at
all. You're totally right. The Brexit referendum was perverted. Absolutely, it was.
Yeah.
But if, on the other hand, there was some possibility of the British public getting a referendum on mass immigration, I would absolutely support it. And I get what you guys are saying about how they would try and pervert that. Of course they would, but I would still support it rather than not having one. Not having one doesn't help us.
Well, that's a problem, though, isn't it? I mean, the thing is, as with Brexit, I mean, it de-weaponized all the sentiment behind it. So the right were just stalled for years. Like you said, the right in this country, we're pretty much doing nothing compared to what the AfD are doing in Germany, or the Sweden Democrats in Sweden, or Vox in Spain, or whatever. Because Brexit kind of stalled us. With its immigration referendum, prospectively, it would just do the same. Like the Tories would take up the banner of anti-immigration sentiment, but they'd just kill off any sense of actually meaning anything. So
Yeah, and like with Theresa May years, what would happen is you'd have like the Labour Party and NGOs and various organisations that would wear it down. They would use the Supreme Court to try and block it, and it would just be watered down and watered down. And Mitch is absolutely right, because I mean, we've gone so far back in this country. I mean, on the topic of immigration, on talk about the demographics of the country, to the point where there is no voice. There is no voice in the mainstream, not like there was when I was growing up. When you go back to like the sort of BNP and BNP days, and then even like the early UKIP days, that voice just isn't there. Because it was worn
there
down.
are so many small parties and all the rest of it.
Yeah,
it
was just worn down.
I don't disagree with you.
And then the funny thing is, with the AfD in Germany, as Mitch was saying, what the AfD.
Look, I am pretty black-pilled about things.
Yeah.
But if some party comes up with have a referendum on mass immigration, I'm absolutely going to support that. And I don't understand anyone on the right who wouldn't support it. And then campaign for a no vote, of course. You know, that would be my view. Will it do any good? Will we ever get one? Probably not. Would it do any good if we did get one? Possibly not. But it's worth trying. I think we're at the stage where anything is worth trying at the moment, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, one of the key problems in the moment in the country is, number one, it's that there is open the mass populace, you know, the weak masses, openly believe that there isn't a British identity, and so that's your problem right there. You need to, that needs to come back into public consciousness.
Dude, I don't know how many people really believe that. I know that the left pushes that, and so do the globalists.
okay,
you know,
they both ones in power.
How many normies, in air quotes, actually believe? Yeah,
So
how many of the so-called normies actually believe that? I think is up for debate.
So there's a video going around on Facebook a few weeks ago. Remember when you had the whole conscription topic going around, right? There was a video going on, and it was some like YouTube channel. Anyway, I just saw it in passing because they were asking about what percentage of the country do you think is black or Asian? And they largely, because they were like in London, there was some hip area of like Shoreditch or something, I don't know, somewhere like that.
Sorry, mate, you cut out.
Sorry, what I was saying was there was a video on Facebook I saw a few weeks ago, and it's basically this YouTuber going around like some sort of young hip area of London. I don't know, maybe Shoreditch or something. And he was interviewing all these young people, young people, and asking what percentage of the population do you think is brown or black, and all of them said like numbers like 40%, 50%, 55%, and none of them sort of thought that was a problem. And I think, yes, older people like yourself, probably even people like me, who remember a time before, even during the Blair years, the early Blair years, where it wasn't common to see a black or brown face. There was an English identity, even though it was being attacked at that point. Older people will remember it, but when you have younger generations growing up now, for them, they see of London, the multiracial side, is just normal. It's a normal part in their mind.
You're cutting out a bit. You're cutting out a bit, mate.
Did you hear?
Yeah, look, like I said, I think one of the things that we should all be doing, and I know you do it on your channel AI to some degree, and I certainly try and do it on this channel. One of the things we should be doing is promoting British history and tradition and identity. And like I say, I know AI does it on his channel, and I certainly try and do it on this channel. People like Patriotic Archive in the chat also do it on their channel with music, etc. And yes, that's one of the things we need to be doing, because younger people are certainly not learning that stuff in school or at university, quite the reverse, in fact. And they're certainly not learning it from mainstream media these days either. Again, entirely deliberately. But I mean, the fact of it is that there is a pretty strong British identity. It's just not being explained to younger people much these days. And they're getting propaganda from the opposite direction. We all saw the Google thing this week, where Google came out with an AI which basically would not put white people in anything deliberately. They're trying to erase white European people from history, basically.
Yes.
Mitch, what you're thinking? Or AI, Mitch, what do you think?
Well, that's a problem with all, isn't it? I mean, when I was growing up, we didn't really learn much in British history. We just learned Italian history in regard to fascist Italy. We learned about Germany in terms of the rise of Mustache Man, and you learned about how the NHS was brought into being. And apartheid. You didn't learn anything about Henry VIII. You didn't learn anything about the Tudors. You didn't learn about the Georgians. You didn't know anything about the Plantagenets or the House of Wessex. If you ask someone, oh, who was it that formed Germany? Let's say guys who attended the same history classes as myself, they would know Bismarck. Or in the case of Italy, they know Cavour and Garibaldi. But if you had to ask them, who do you think unified England? They don't know. They won't be able to tell you. I can tell you the answer without having to research on the internet, because I did it in my own free time. But that's the problem, though, isn't it? It's just most people are lazy. They're not going to spend their time like me researching about King Athelstan in 937 AD. So that's the main problem you've got, is most people, in the sense that they are sheepish, they will not go out their way to study their own history. Most of them don't. So expecting people to be, quote unquote, based and red pilled about issues like this, you're just kidding yourself.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I was in school, we did the rise of the mid-century German, right? And one topic we learned about, like, of course you do, is Weimar Germany, and it was always presented to us as it had an economic flawed society. There was instability because of political extremes, but it was a very liberal society and everything was great. People were free. And the problem that you had, and I had at the time, was looking at it then, I thought to myself, if everything was fine, why did you have the political extremes? Because if the people were content, you wouldn't have problems. You wouldn't have, like, the Spartacus League. You wouldn't have various communist and Marxist movements, paramilitaries, rebellions, or on the turn, you wouldn't have, like, the sort of nationalists as well. The Free Corps. You wouldn't have any of those sort of groups going around. So why was there? What was? And it didn't really topic. And I know, like, we sort of talk about the meme, the book burnings. Like, well, what were the books that were burnt? And that's the thing. They're very sheepish about. Of course, we know what sort of books were burnt, and
yes,
and
for me, they weren't things like Dickens and Carlyle.
No, and the funny thing, because it was sort of it was implied, or is that it was like all sorts of books. It was like the iconoclasts of the early Christian age, just burning everything that was that was found. I mean, but no, in reality, that wasn't the case. And the funny thing is, when I did
rather than the pornography, which the vast majority of it was.
Yeah, it was like transgenderism. It was paedophilia. It was all sorts.
Were pornography of one form or another. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was very disgusting stuff that was burnt.
You're quite right. Yeah. I mean, in Weimar, in the German Weimar Republic, in the days before Moustache Man took over, there were like prostitution, including child prostitution and homosexual prostitution, etc. It was just completely out of control in major German cities.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. It was. There was.
Perverts from all over the world were going to Berlin because they could get little children there, and little boys and all this kind of stuff.
Well, there was even
Yes,
recorded
absolutely, 100%.
public acts of of sex in the streets and stuff like that. I mean, it was terrible. It was a complete breakdown of society. Hence why you had the political extremes. Because one thing the Marxists and nationalists,
they had institutes with early cases of LGBTQ crap and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and the thing is,
absolutely, it was very, very corrupt and a nasty situation.
Yeah, so Iron Duke, what I was going to say was,
sorry, mate,
both groups, both the Marxists and the nationalists and mid-century German, both of them, if you think about it, because this was when I was looking into it, both of them had this platform of basically anti-bourgeoisie sentiment. That's the only commonality both of them had, is that they were both against that group in one way or another. Apart from the liberals and the socialists, they're sort of that was sort of made up of their own group anyway. But it, and looking into it, I also looked in the same time the Spanish Civil War. That's another thing. It's taught that it was the evil anti-democratic fascist brigade that tried to went to overthrow the democratically elected government, and in the end, the evil fascists won thanks to Germany and Italy, and the pro-democrat side lost in that conflict.
They don't tend to talk about the priests who were murdered and the nuns who were raped and murdered and etc. by the commies. No, they don't talk about them.
No, all like the acts, the voter fraud in the election, where the communists and socialists actively committed voter fraud, were very open about it, attacked conservative. Because the thing there is, what was just sort of so you did have a Christian conservative party in Spain at the time, and when the Civil War broke out, as you can imagine, that party just became obsolete because anyone who was on that side went into the Falange and other sort of nationalist groups. So the conservative movement pretty much died because everyone had to go to the right then, because the left went so extreme, and the reason why Franco and others acted was because it was clear that there was that there were elements in the government controlled by Moscow were effectively committed voter fraud to win an election and then overthrow the government. That's why the Franco and the others acted in the way they did, and quite rightly so.
Of course, Stalin's Soviet Union were also giving military aid to the lefties in Spain. So it wasn't just the Italians and Germans who were helping the nationalists. The lefties there were getting military aid from Stalin's Soviet Union, who was hardly a good guy.
No, and Stalin was the one that wanted the anarchists in the Republican camp to be snuffed out because they were. I mean, because they were in the sort of the front line around Barcelona and northeast Spain, and I think what happened was they basically became a bit of a liability. From reading about the time there, they seem to be the most incapable fighting force ever to walk the face of the earth. They're literally, I think I've told this story before on here, but you have accounts where because they didn't have like any leader, they didn't have any like structure, you know, like a rank, an officer ranking structure. Everything was decided by elective decisions. So they'd be in the middle of a firefight, and it's like, oh, do we advance from this position first or this position here? And they would like all huddle round and vote. And several occasions, you know, the nationalist side would storm their position.
The way to do a military action.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't argue that looking at the 1930s, whether you're looking at Germany or Spain or Italy, indeed a bit earlier, the view that the mainstream media and the liberal normies push these days, and the globalists, is hardly historically accurate. It's just not, you know. And we know that. I suspect most of our audience knows that, but most people certainly don't.
Yeah, I mean, of course, and
to me, this is like it's stuff we've been taught a few years now. So, and I mean, you know, to some degree, we can do our best to point that out. I mean, on this channel in particular, like I've made some effort to try and point out the shortcomings, shall we say, of Winston Churchill as a leader of Britain and the Empire. And as I say, some effort over some years now. And I'm no fan of Winston Churchill. I think he did more than any other single man to destroy the British Empire. And again, I doubt that anyone on this panel is going to disagree with that, largely. Doesn't sound like anyone's going to disagree with that anyway. Someone asked earlier on in the chat whether I thought the war in Ukraine will be ended by the end of this year. My own opinion is it is possible that it might end by the end of this year. I'm by no means certain it will, but it certainly could. Mitch, you're our expert on that stuff. What's your view on that? Is it going to be over by the end of this year, or do you think it's going to go on longer?
No, I think it'll continue on for another couple of years. I can imagine by 2027, by then, Russia will have taken all it needs to like.
Years. Wow.
Well, I mean, I'm not just. I'm going off like this Russian fellow I follow on Twitter. Like he's obviously some opinion because I think, I mean, you even get some of these pro-Ukraine normies who are saying, "Oh yeah, Ukraine's probably got like 18 months of manpower left at the very, very latest." So you just, I mean, that's the thing about it. I mean, you're already seeing like ammunition shortages where, where Ukrainian artillery crews are told only, or Ukrainian mortar crews are told only fire one shell a day. You can't fight a war long term on that. That's probably one reason.
No.
But I mean, it's shortage of that helped to make Avdiivka happen, where the city fell very violently and suddenly in the latter phase of the fighting. But then you're also seeing other sectors along the front where, let's say, that salient were made in that offensive back in like June, July. That salient they were made through heavily won sacrifice and whatnot. All that land is now being reversed back into Russian hands. So what's taken?
Yeah, they've taken it back Ukraine, in a few days, haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah, what took Ukraine, the equivalent of an entire summer to achieve, Russians are accomplishing in a matter of a week and whatnot. So that alongside Syrskyi being the commander-in-chief, because he's known as a butcher.
But basically Ukraine's not winning anywhere. They're not winning anywhere, you know?
No. It's... I mean, you've got that Willie OAM on that.
Ukrainians are not winning anywhere on the front.
I'm seeing footage on Telegram recently of men with Down syndrome. You know, like teenagers with Down syndrome, young men with Down syndrome, in on the Ukrainian side in trenches. I mean, that's literally and they're basically being used as like cannon fodder in some regards.
Yeah, I've seen videos of them being abused as well, where you get these Ukrainian
Well,
soldiers.
I mean, that's all they're being used for, because someone with Down syndrome is not going to be a good soldier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you still got like
someone
these
with Down syndrome is not going to be a good soldier. So
and you still got like these pro NATO accounts, which are you're still doing those pictures of like blonde-haired actors in military uniforms, doing the whole propaganda stuff. But I mean, it's just nonsense. It's rubbish. Only like clueless boomers are sort of falling for it at this stage.
You mind saying again?
Well, I will say one post that I was looking at. There was a post on Twitter X a day or two ago, and it pointed out that the US is producing about 950 artillery shells a day. Britain and the EU are producing together about 780 artillery shells a day, whereas Russia is producing nearly 6,000 shells a day. And as they always say about military stuff, amateurs talk about tactics and professionals talk about logistics, and those logistics are very, very difficult to argue with.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you got that Australian fella on YouTube who he's a lot more hopeful about the West in terms of the logistics they can provide towards Ukraine than you and I would ever be. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, it's like
even if they can expand that stuff, and I'm sure that they are trying to expand their production. I mean, it's going to take a year or two to ramp up. And
keep in mind,
of course, the Russians are going to also be expanding. They're not going to be sitting still, not doing anything.
Well, the thing about it is, most of the workers in these factories, a lot of them are former retirees who've been drafted in. So
yeah,
because
they don't have the young guys with the skills to actually make the damn things anymore. Yep, true.
Yeah, but that's the problem with America is just they've grown complacent with empire as of late, whereas the Russians nowadays they made a lot of mistakes in this war, but they are learning, as is standard Russian tradition. Whereas looking at the collective West, how they're responding to it, it's just like very complacent, very lackluster. It's nowhere near enough. It's just. And it's not just that. I mean, you also got a sense of managed to decline on our part because, well, we always think of wars as being like Afghanistan rather than what we're like in Ukraine, where you can see regular videos now of like these teenage girls drafted by the Ukrainian army, and they're just like screaming, just going, "What the hell am I meant to do?" They get given a Kalashnikov with a few magazines and told to fight the Russians, and they go, "Yeah, I don't really trust a 5'4" goth girl to stand long against a VDV battalion for long."
They're going to run away. And when they run away, they're probably going to get shot anyway.
Well, it's not even just that. I mean, well, it's not even that. I mean, let's say, right? I mean, because you have to get this whole idea that all of the Russians are all rapists and that they're all they're all war criminals and all this. And I go, okay, then if that is true, then isn't it responsible? Isn't it very, very irresponsible of Ukraine that they're putting their women on the front line?
If that were true, which I don't think it is, but if it were true, yes, of course that would.
Yeah, because
that would be absolutely right, Mitch.
It's like their own actions disprove their own rhetoric in terms of we talk about Russians being rapey orcs who are only motivated by plunder and all this, but then their actions in terms of drafting women and all this just goes against their own rhetoric. Really, when you
it's a bit it's a bit like Morgoth said on Twitter on X last week. When because they're going on about they were going on last week's thing they were going on about was Russia's super space nukes.
Yeah.
You remember that one, Mitch? And Morgoth pointed out that the Russians had really done rather well, hadn't they? Because they'd gone in 6 months from only being armed with shovels to having space nukes. Because you remember 6 months ago, the Russian soldiers only had shovels. It's they want it always in the Western mainstream media. It's just so fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I don't know, the only other thing about Ukraine is they're having a lot of supply issues with Poland as of late, where the Polish lorry drivers, and also all the Polish farmers, they're getting irked off with the Ukrainians in terms of, because the thing about Ukraine is that they've got really cheap grain that they can sell at cheaper prices compared to the Polish farmers. So you got a situation where, on one hand, Poland's trying to help Ukraine, but at the same time, they've got to prioritize their own agricultural sector. So, and but the Ukrainians, in their typical arrogance these days, they just keep demanding the Polish keep opening up the border and all this. So it's just a real standoff situation where all these Ukrainians on Twitter, they've fed posting about Poland like their bandera in 1941 or whatever. Meanwhile, you've got the Polish who are also getting equally pissed off as well with this arrangement where they do, because I mean, Poland, they're one of the main reasons why Ukraine has resisted so strongly in this war, because they're the main logistics conduit by which aid flows into Ukraine. I mean, Ukrainians don't appreciate that at all.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to head off because I don't know if it's my internet or whatever, or the mic, but it just keeps on. I just keep on losing connection, and I can
sound
hear
like the best you've sounded so far at the moment, mate. That's the best you've sounded in the whole stream as you are at the moment. I don't know if maybe it's improved somehow, but
the trouble is,
you were a bit cutting out earlier.
Yeah, you guys are cutting out on my end, so I don't know what's going on here, but it's like so often.
You're not cutting out now.
Yeah, I mean, like earlier I was talking, and then I realized you guys were still talking, and it was like, oh, you guys couldn't hear me. So
yeah, you earlier on, AI, you were cutting out, but you're not now. So I don't know if you want to give it one more try, because at the moment your sound is the best it's been the whole stream.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, give it one more try. Do you have anything you wanted to say about what we're talking about at the moment in terms of the military operation in Ukraine?
Well, apart from there seems to be more wider acceptance of. First, it was sort of like the idea of coming round to the table, but there seems to be more acceptance in like the media of that Ukraine isn't going to win, and of course you have people like Boris Johnson and others who are still beating the drums for no, of course they can win, never surrender, all that sort of stuff, while the entire like male population is maimed or killed by this conflict. So I don't know. I personally I think there is momentum behind the Russians at the moment. They're managing to that city Avika, is it Avika? Yeah. I mean, that one was in play, but it seems there were quite a few people who monitor this, exactly who I follow, who monitor the conflict, were quite surprised of how quickly it was actually taken by the Russians. So I don't know if it'll be a couple years or this year. It wouldn't surprise me if the West, maybe at the end of this year or into next year, at some point they want to try and get Russia around the table to negotiate. Yeah, I mean, I would say if the war just continues as is, I mean, I don't see a way Ukraine can win.
Yeah, totally agree. I don't see any way Ukraine can win. None whatsoever. It's the only question is how long it takes the Russians to win. Really.
And also, I don't think Zelensky's going to be president leader this time next year either.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I know Steve in the chat said he might have no choice but to keep fighting, but actually, yeah, I think he'll get removed one way or another. I don't see much chance that he's going to remain as president. The question is, what is a Russian victory? I mean, to me, a decisive Russian victory is they take the land up to the Dnieper River and probably Odessa and the Black Sea coast as well. And if they do that, then Putin can say to the Russian people, look, this is a decisive Russian victory.
He retakes like New Russia.
Barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, the land.
Yeah, the Nova Russia.
Nova Russia, the Nova Russia,
Yeah.
and Crimea and stuff. I mean, I know there's been I don't know if Mitch has been following this, but in Moldova, that breakaway republic in Transnistria, there has been like movements there about a possible front opening up there. I mean, that's sort of been going on for ever since the invasion, but there seems to be some sort of I even saw like an article talking about that there may be an attempt in Transnistria to a referendum to join the Russian Federation. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I do agree. A cool attempt state. Can't agree with you about the online right being clueless as ever, but there we go, mate. I don't see any way that Ukraine can win, and I think the Russian victory conditions. People quite say that the Russians are being vague about this. I don't think they are actually, if you listen to them carefully enough. I think they want the Dnieper River as a border because that would be a good, pretty solid border. And people east of that tend to be pro-Russian, whereas people west of it tend to be more pro-Ukrainian. So it's not going to give the Russians the problem of ruling over people who don't like them. And obviously you're going to get some population transfers after that. And the other thing is that, to my mind, they kind of have to take Odessa and the Black Sea coast because that's the only way they can make Sevastopol naval base and the Russian Black Sea fleet secure. So that, in my view, that's what the Russians are going to aim at, and I don't see any possible way of the Ukrainians stopping them getting there eventually. I just don't.
Well, I mean, as I've said before, like Odessa won't actually be taken by force; it'll be taken by like a post-war. Well, I
don't think they actually have to assault it and capture it. No, they can get it in a peace deal. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you can imagine by the time Russia's fully taken over Donbass, it's going to be a situation where the Ukrainian army is going to be such a bad position, morale and equipment-wise, as well as manpower-wise, or personnel-wise, I should say, given the adjustment these areas, that what would be the point of fighting anymore? Like, I mean, to be fair, there's no point for Ukraine to fight a war anymore at this point because you're just forestalling an inevitable outcome. Anyway, so there's that.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching a show yesterday, a stream yesterday with like 5 or 6 American ex-military types. And even they were talking about, America does not have the resources at the moment to supply Ukraine, to supply Israel, to fight the Houthis in the Red Sea and the Gulf, let alone doing anything about Taiwan, which is their other issue. And I mean, this is, again, it's pretty obvious, they just don't have the resources, not even the Americans do, to cope with all that stuff, Aquila Temp State, don't agree with you at all, mate. Sorry, don't. They don't have the resources to do that. Nowhere near. They don't have the military resources to do it. They don't have the manufacturing resources to do it. And they certainly do not have the stockpiles of ammunition, etc., to do it now. They just do not. And if you think they do, then obviously you do not know as much as you think you do, my friend. But anyway. So, yeah, I mean, that's my view on that one. Did anyone have anything else that they would like to bring up? AI? Did you have a final subject you wanted to bring up, mate?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, AI. Did you have a final subject you wanted to bring up?
Not particularly. I was going to say I can't really think of anything. Yeah, we could just talk about that and
Right. Again, I'm just going to say in the chat here, right? This dude, whoever he is, and Aubrey are also saying, if it was just Ukraine, America has the resources. I'm not sure that he even have the resources if it was just Ukraine, but it isn't just Ukraine. America is flying enormous amounts of ammunition and equipment across to Israel now, and they are also using loads of stuff to fight the Houthis with the U.S. Navy, which the Royal Navy is also helping with, and the RAF. And then, of course, there's the whole potential thing in the South China Sea with Taiwan, which is a totally different scale problem entirely. The Americans do not have the resources for this, and anyone who thinks they do is an idiot. I'm sorry. But I don't think they even have the resources if it was just Ukraine. America does not have the ability to manufacture as many shells as the Russians do. And yes, they could get that ability back, but it will take time. Yeah, and you people were saying, there's 8,000 Abrams, 4,000 in storage. Possibly true. They're not the latest versions of the Abrams that are in storage. And Abrams tanks in storage, when you don't have any crews to man them, are not a lot of use, let me tell you.
Well, so
and it takes months and months and months to train tank crews.
Well, it's like, I mean, you get...
and America at the moment can't even recruit for its own army. The US recruitment figures are appalling, and the British recruitment figures are appalling. And as we have said at some length this evening, Ukraine itself is actually running out of men. The shells don't matter. Just stop resupplying microelectronics to Russia. Yeah, I know. We heard early in this military operation, the Russians were going to have to use microchips from refrigerators and all the rest of it. Absolute nonsense, of course. Didn't turn out to be true. As one of these American military dudes on the stream I was watching said yesterday, according to Western military intelligence and the Western mainstream media, the Russians are going to run out of shells next week. All right? It's nonsense. It's just nonsense. It really is.
They've been saying that for years now. They're going to run out of ammunition in a few weeks. There's going to be a coup in a few months.
They're
going to have like Russian armies suddenly en masse. They're going to run out of food. They're all going to walk back to Russia. I mean, it's just nonsense.
The Atlantic powers aren't trying to win. That's the point. Sorry, don't agree with you, Recall Attempts. I just don't. I beg your pardon. I just do not agree with you. But anyway, I think you're right. It's just I've heard this stuff for 2 years now, and it's just not happening. It is nonsense. I mean, they've come out with all this style. The Russians are going to run out of missiles. The Russians are going to run out of shells. There's going to be a coup. It's just not true. Hasn't happened. Isn't going to happen. No sign of it happening whatsoever.
The idea about the Western powers aren't trying to win, I mean, have you seen the amount of rhetoric that comes from about how they must decolonize Russia and all this? Like, it's very maximalist war goals on part of the West. So
I know. I mean, what Aquila Tempestate? Tell me, what is the Atlantic powers' great plan that they're not trying to win? What are they doing then exactly? Other than wasting huge amounts of their taxpayers' money and killing a whole generation of Ukrainian young men. What is it they're doing? Please tell me what this 5D chess that they're doing is. You know, given I'm an clueless person.
I mean, ultimately, let's be honest, the West and NATO in particular, neocons, their dream is they want a Yeltsin figure back running Russia. They want their own guy
so they can break
in
it up.
Belarus. Yeah,
so they
so
can break it up. Yeah, absolutely, 100% right. But it ain't going to happen, as far as I can see.
No, that's the post-Soviet age is gone now. This is a new age, so no, that's definitely not going to happen. I'm going to have to head off now, I'm afraid. But
all right, mate. Thank you very much for joining. You're always most welcome. Is there anything you'd like to plug before you go, AI?
No, just my channel. I hope to get back to
Which is
Richard
AI Shire Tory, I believe.
Yeah, AI Shire Tory. I hope to get back to Richard Hilton stream. Connor's not been too well, so I've had to postpone it for a bit, but I will be getting back to it. Hopefully next week. If not, then maybe sometime after. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, just check out my channel. It was a good stream yesterday on Ragnarok and Odin and Christ responding to a video by
that was a good stream.
Nortulia.
I watched that.
Yeah, that was a good one. And his video essay sort of saying that Christ completes the Ragnarok story. We sort of go into it and we sort of question elements of it, looking at from like the pagan perspective and the Christian perspective. So yeah, it was a pretty good stream. So do check that out and check out his video as well. Check out Nortuga's original video essay. Yeah. But yes, apart from that, thank you guys.
All right, go on, mate. Aubrey in the chat is saying, do I think, corrupt as Ukraine may be, that they have the right to be an independent state? I don't care. Don't care if Ukraine is an independent state or not. It's not Britain's problem. Not a vital British interest at all. I don't care if Ukraine exists or it doesn't exist. I wouldn't send them so much as a second-hand pair of British Army boots, quite frankly. That's my view on Ukraine. And yes, it is one of the most corrupt nations in the entire world. Yes, it is. It's a center for the baby trade. If you're a gay couple who wants to get a baby, Ukraine's where you're liable to get it from. It's also a center for young girls being used as sex workers and this kind of stuff. So again, I don't care if Ukraine is independent or isn't independent. It's not a vital British interest. It is a vital Russian interest because it's on their border. If Russia or China was setting up military bases or wanted to get the Canadians or the Mexicans into an alliance, I think you would find that America would be most unhappy with this and would fight them. In fact, I'm absolutely 100% sure that they would fight them. So, and the Monroe Doctrine says as much. So, why is Russia any different? Aubrey backs democracy. Well, I don't back democracy. I'm not a Democrat. So there we go.
Well, I just see it as a situation where Ukraine can't win itself. Like, it's like, like the UK is made up of Scotland, Wales, England, and Northern Ireland. Because let's face it, if England were to go by itself, I don't think we'd last long. Whereas part of a union, we stand much more of a chance. Likewise, I think the same for Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, where Ukraine by itself can't really do much. Look at Ukraine is essentially just a society of East Slavs that never moved on beyond the 90s. Like, whereas Russia was able to have Putin provide stability for them after what Yeltsin did to them, Ukraine never had that. Like, they've always had oligarchs winning politics.
The Donbass area, the Nova Russia area, and Odessa, by the way, all of those places are actually Russian places. The people there support Russia, not Ukraine. Western Ukraine, yes, that's a different story. Eastern Ukraine wants to be part of Russia. Russia did referendums in all of those territories, and they all voted overwhelmingly to be Russian. And there were observers there who I watched, and as far as I could see, they were as free and fair elections as any other. In fact, they were probably more free and fair than the last American presidential election, where there were various shenanigans. So, there we go.
I just see it as simple as, okay, well, look, all my enemies, everyone who hates me and hate, and I hate back, they all support Ukraine. They all want to
Yep.
use Ukraine as a battering
Everybody who I
to
detest
force.
supports Ukraine. I absolutely, totally agree with you, Mitch. I am exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I can't imagine, for example, an alternate universe where I'm supporting Ukraine just because of Victoria Nuland. Like, you know, you need only look at Victoria Nuland
Yep.
and the stuff she does, and you just go,
An
yeah, this is not
absolutely
organic.
evil woman. Yes, absolutely evil woman. Yes.
Yeah, so
everyone I detest supports Ukraine, basically.
Yeah, whereas I'm
not
even
particularly pro-Russian. I'm not particularly pro-Russian. I don't see any reason why in 2024 Britain and Russia should particularly be enemies, because I don't think there's all that much that we need to argue and fight about in 2024. You know, given Britain no longer has the Indian Empire and the rest of it, which is what used to cause most of the problem between Britain and Russia in the 19th century. But today, there's no great reason for Britain and Russia to be enemies, as far as I can see, other than the fact that Britain is just the US poodle. And you know, gets beaten by the Americans with the end of the leash and says, "Oh, please beat me harder all the fucking time." You know, excuse my language, but yeah.
Well, I'm a lot more clear cut in the sense that I'm very Russophilic, so I can't imagine.
Yeah, you're more pro-Russian than I am, but I'm not particularly pro-Russian. But on the other hand, it's not a vital British interest, Ukraine, and I don't care who runs Ukraine. I just don't, to be honest. It's nothing that need concern the Brits.
Yeah, it's like, I know. I can see myself, let's say for argument's sake, Russia were to, I don't know, invade Poland, then yeah, I wouldn't be as minded to support that sort of invasion. Well, I mean, I don't like the Polish these days because of how much they've been turned out to be bootlickers to America. But on the other hand, so I wouldn't really support Russian invasion of Poland. But I mean, Russians taking over Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine's been historically Russian land since the time of Rurik and Oleg.
Yes,
so
absolutely right.
It's like,
totally agree.
It's like, I know. It's like if England and Wales were to be independent countries from one another and we fought to regain control of Wales. It's just like, well, it's historically been part of our country, really. So it's not really. Or, I don't know, if we were to take a part of Wales like Monmouthshire, which is historically England, but is now under Welsh jurisdiction or whatever. I don't know. I'm clutching at straws a bit here, but I think the point's made.
Yeah.
In that sense.
I got people in the chat saying, well, just because the enemy of my enemy is not necessarily my friend. I'm not stupid about that. I know that is the truth. But everyone who I detest, everybody who I really, really, really politically dislike, supports Ukraine. So,
well, that's the thing is, like, when you get the whole meme about, base Ukraine and all this, and I go, okay, but all the NGOs that dominate Ukraine, they're going to just influence the society even further and further.
Yep.
Like Western political ideas like feminism and all the gender stuff, that's seeping into Ukrainian society.
Crap. Yep.
Yeah, so it's just like, that's the thing. It's like, that's another reason I support Russia in all this. It's at the end of the day, yeah, you can complain all you want about how Ukrainians don't want to live under Russian control in terms of Lvov and Kiev. But at the end of the day, you know, if you're a Ukrainian nationalist, you'd fare a lot better under Russia than you would under Washington. Because you take a look at Chechnya, for example, where they've got their own elites, they will have a lot more autonomy from Russia, whereas America would not allow you to do that. Like, I mean, they'll even have it's like Thomas 777 would say along the lines of, they send figures like Victoria Nuland and Hillary Clinton as a kind of like a psyop onto itself. Like, you get these women who are just fundamentally evil, but there's also small parameters you can work with, and it's just a complete psyop onto itself. How you have to work yourself to their standards, but they're just very thin, so you've not got much room to maneuver, and they're designed to make you strafe under the pressure, so they can just bollock you even more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, again, you got people in the chat talking about new power blocks, Israel, Russia, and China. I don't see Israel joining Russia and China, quite honestly.
Yeah, I've seen
They
Israeli
can't afford
politicians
to. They're so dependent on the Americans. The Americans who block anything that's done in the UN against Israel, etc. It's not going to happen. And
Well, it's not
also,
that.
Israel
I mean,
is not all that powerful anyway, except in a very regional sense.
Well, 20% of their population is Russian. They go, okay, but you look at Russian society; they don't worship Israel like we do in the West.
Yeah, and
Like,
also
you
the
don't really see
20% of
that.
their population that's Russia tends to be not all that pro-Russian. There were people who got out of Russia, actually, but yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you factor. I mean, how many of a certain minority who live in America controlling foreign policy like Blinken and Newland? How many of them come from former lands of the Russian Empire, and they profess to hate Russia? It's not just. I mean, I've seen.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
videos.
Zelensky's Jewish, isn't he? Zelensky is Jewish, and I'm pretty sure he's got Israeli citizenship if he wants it. Zelensky of Ukraine. So yeah, I mean, look, I'm no fan of Israel, and I'm not particularly a fan of China, to be honest with you. And as I said, I'm not really a fan of Russia. I'm just pretty neutral on Russia, to be honest. But the idea that Israel is going to be part of this bloc, I think, is just ludicrous, quite frankly.
Well, I mean, you probably have some sections of Israelis who are just thinking they need to be more flexible. But I mean, you take Netanyahu and the guys around him, they're all more in tune with America. I mean, you've got the Israeli ruling party where a lot of our MPs have bollocked Russia in the past because plenty of Russians in terms of information sphere generally tend to be more sympathetic towards Palestine than they are to Israel. Like I can't name any people on the pro-Russian side who are also pro-Israel. I can't name a single one.
Well, and modern geopolitics and stuff now with BRICS and all the rest of it kind of means that, yeah, of course, the Russians at the moment are going to be more Palestinian, pro-Palestinian. Russia's also in Syria, for example. They've been helping Assad for quite a long time.
Well, it's like, I mean, Russia's got interest in the area that go against Israeli interests, but like, I don't think, I mean, to my knowledge, I don't think Putin's done anything that's explicitly anti-Israel. From my memory, it's just more, Israel complains about him supporting Assad, or well, they'll complain because I think it's something like Hezbollah leadership have actually been spotted meeting in Moscow for something, but those are rumors. I can't confirm, but I won't be surprised if that's actually true, considering. I mean, Russia's allied with Iran these days, and Iran is a mortal enemy of Israel. I don't think Russia's doing it for hate of Israel. It's just they just happen to be good buddies in terms of drones and opposing America and all this. I don't know where Israel would stand by in terms of Russia, because yeah, that's true. Like there's a Chabad group in Russia, but then there are plenty of Jews in Russia who, because they oppose a war, they've been chucked out of the country or they've been sued by the state. So it's also one of those things where, on one hand, you can talk about there's that certain minorities control in the West, but they don't really control Russia as much as you think. Like you'll still get cases where Putin is doing this war in Ukraine, but there are plenty of that minority who don't like the war because it is decoupling from the West. And of course, that certain group, they like Russia tied in with the West, but they don't like the Russian direction they're going in. So you just get a lot of these 4x2 types opposing the war, and may just get
I don't disagree with you, Mitch. Aquila Tempstate in the chat is not asking your opinion, guys. He's telling us, well, man, you can tell us, but you might be in the wrong shop. But anyway, whatever. Mitch, anything you wanted to shill or promote?
No, I can't think of anything. Like, I mean, that little, I don't know, project, I suppose you call it. I don't know what you call it. Like the whole, what this word would be if, I don't know, in old Anglo-Saxon.
The old English stuff. Yeah. The old English stuff you wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really kept on board with that on my Twitter as of late. But I suppose if you're interested in that side of English, like in terms of, you have this word like, I don't know, let's say promise, or I don't know, some non-Germanic word. What would it be like if England never got invaded by the Normans and English was more Anglo-Saxon, blah, blah, blah. what would it be? So that's just the whole autistic history projects I'm doing in terms of my Twitter.
Yeah,
So I know.
no, that's interesting stuff. I know you talk about it on the Discord sometimes. So yeah. Aquila Temp State, I'm getting bored with you, mate. Keep it up and you'll just get banned. But anyway, there is something I wanted to promote. Tomorrow, at, I think 3 o'clock, so it's on Sunday UK time.
Oh, is that a Zulu thing you're doing with
Yeah, 3 p.m. on Sunday UK time. I'm going to be on Endeavour's channel with Endeavour and Morgoth's Review to review the film Zulu from 1964. So that should be pretty good, I hope. I'm certainly looking forward to doing that. So do tune into Endeavour's YouTube channel for that. As I say, 3 p.m. Sunday UK time, that's tomorrow, which is the middle of the night for me, but that's fine. I don't sleep that well anyway.
What do you
apologies.
reckon?
Sorry, mate, carry on.
What do you reckon the main focus of that review of Zulu is going to be? What is going to be more of historical accuracies, like
I'm not sure. Look, I've watched something like 7 of Morgoth and Endeavour's classic movie reviews, and they vary a bit depending on how political the film is. There is generally some, they do attempt to look at it, how historically accurate it is, if it's that sort of a film. But there's also a look at what the directors were trying to do. So yeah, I think it'll be a mixture, basically. I will certainly try and do some of the actual history as opposed to what the film shows. Because I've been to the actual battlefield many times. I've also been to where they filmed the film, which is up in the Drakensberg Mountains. I even climbed one of the damn great mountains behind that forms one of the backdrops to the big assaults and things, which is called Giant's Castle. But anyway, yeah, so I think it'll be a mixture, although bearing in mind it's not my channel, I'm certainly going to be taking a back seat on it and seeing where Endeavour and Morgoth want to take things. But I'm looking forward to doing it.
I thought you'd be more of a front seat, but given as you said, you've got the experience, you've got the know-how.
Yeah, but it's not. But you know, Endeavour and Morgoth's classic movie reviews are a quite long-running series. I think they've done like 30 films now. They do like one a month. So yeah, I'm very conscious that I'm just a guest, but hopefully people will find it interesting. I'm certainly looking forward to doing that because I've wanted to do something with Morgoth for ages anyway, and I also like Endeavour. I think Endeavour, who's a Canadian chap, has a good YouTube channel as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So that should be pretty good. I must apologise to people in the chat. I've been pretty low energy this evening. I'm sorry. I had a triple bypass operation less than 2 weeks ago. So I'm not actually raging with energy at the moment. So apologies for that because I have been a bit low energy this evening, I'm afraid. But hopefully it will get better. No, Alone in the Woods, they did 55 Days in Peking, which is a good one that you should go and check out. I think that's the one you're thinking about. They also did The Man Who Would Be King as well, which is the movie based on a Kipling story with Michael Caine and Sean Connery in it, which was also pretty good. So they've done those, but they haven't done Zulu. Yeah, and Zulu is pretty much my favorite film. I've seen it so many times, I probably know most of the lines in it, including the ones which are ridiculous for a 19th century officer to come out with, but of which there are a few. So yeah, hopefully I can add a bit to that. So yeah, thanks very much to the audience. We'll be back next week when I'll hopefully have a bit more energy because I'll have been to the docks by then. Thank you to my guests, AI and Mitch, and go well. And I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully on Endeavour's channel with Morgoth for the classic movie review of Zulu. Go well, folks.